Welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. I am Gyi Sakalakis of Attorney Sync, and I love avocados.
I'm Conrad Som of Mockingbird, and I hate when people mispronounce my name Sam, but I've learned to just deal with it.
Interesting. I didn't know that about you.
It's a pet peeve that I'm just like, when I lived in Ireland, I was Connor, and so everyone knew me as Connor instead of Conrad, and here I'm Sam instead of Som, and there are different problems I'm going to deal with.
And we are the hosts of Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, this podcast about marketing in the digital AI information age. Conrad, I noticed on social media that you have been traveling around the country to visit schools. I'm assuming you have an offspring that is be attending college soon.
Yeah, Spawn 2 is a senior, and we are right in the middle of... This is the worst. If you know it, this is a public service announcement. If there are any seniors in your world, please do them the favor of not asking them about school. If they want to talk to you about it, and they don't, but if they do, or if they have something to share, they will. But stop asking them. It is a brutal, brutal season. This March is when the kind of late decisions come out, and so... there are lots of late decisions, and these poor kids are just kind of nervous wrecks. I don't think I'm just speaking about Spawn 2, but yeah.
Well, I'm sorry that Spawn 2 is going through that process. What else are we talking about today?
We are going to initially cover the news. We've got a long news segment. We're then going to walk into the question that was posed by James Amaro online. Is Angel Reyes eating your lunch and stealing your clients? And then... really important revisiting of direct brand search in LSAs. Should you or should you not be participating in direct brand search? We uncover a very deeply scientific poll that I put out to answer that question.
Lockwood, let's do this.
Welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, teaching you how to promote, market, and make fat stacks for your legal practice. Here on Legal Talk Network.
And now, the news. All right, everybody, you cannot talk about the news without talking about what's going on in Washington, D.C. There have been a ton of federal layoffs, including a lot of lawyers. If you happen to be a lawyer or know a lawyer who is recently laid off from the federal government and is thinking about starting his or her own gig, check out Brian and Ben Glass just outside of DC, northeast of DC, who are going out of their way to help any federal lawyers, ex-federal lawyers, get into business for themselves. Brian and Ben have been doing this for people coming out of the military for a long time, and they're extending this to federal workers. So I think that is a very, very cool thing. Great way to give back, and a great way to get a lot smarter about running your law firm and starting your law firm if this has unfortunately hit you. Gyi, we also dealt with, over the last 2 weeks since we last recorded, the diversity update from Google coined by Joyanne Hawkins. Can you give, and you and I did a live segment on that. We can try and find the link to the recording for that, where we went deep on the diversity update. Can you give me a TLDR on the diversity update, please?
TLDR is that if you are a more dominant firm in the local pack, there is a likelihood or some likelihood that you might have your traditional organic listing demoted, particularly on mobile. And so Conrad and I go deeper on this and give our opinions in the YouTube live segment that we'll send a link to, so we won't go too long on that. But something worth checking out, especially if you're seeing drops in positions in your traditional organic results.
And that would date back to, I want to say, August of last
Yeah,
year.
they're saying August, but an uptick more recently.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of upticks, there has been an uptick in the AIOs showing up in legal. There are lots of smarty pants SEO people who are seeing this anecdotally. So we were really excited when Google launched this, and it is continuing to expand. So expect to see an uptick in that, which might also mean a downtick. Is that a thing? Can you have a downtick? A drop?
Zero click. We're going to be in the zero click environment.
That is the point. So you may see this. The result of this may be fewer clicks to informational type pages on your site.
Which brings you back to, you better be asking people how they found you, because if you're paying someone for clicks, you're missing the forest for the trees.
That is a little foreshadowing of what we're going to be talking about later in our episode on direct brand search in LSAs. You do want to stick around for that. Okay, and finally, Gyi, this is the second time in 2 days that I've gotten to spend some time recording with you. Who did we record for, and what did we talk about?
Zach at Lawyerist invited us to be on the Lawyerist podcast, and folks, I think you mentioned that's coming out in a week or two, so stay tuned for that. Great chat on the impact of AI in marketing across a bunch of different dimensions. So I won't say much more than that so people get it. And I think the plan is to drop that in our feed too. So if you're already a subscriber here, you should get that and check out the Lawyerist podcast in general. Great.
That was really good. That was good time. All right. If you are watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Keep the conversation going. We would love to hear from you. Leave a comment, positive or otherwise. And if you want to listen to another episode, we did the live stream on the diversity update. We'll try and make sure that that gets in. We have talked a lot. I would say too much, and I actually had to convince Gyi to continue the conversation on this about brand conquest ads in Google pay-per-click. And this has really evolved. But the reason I brought this back is a comment from James Amaro. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to describe the ad, because describing the ad is very, very important. I am not an IP lawyer and no idea who this guy is or about, but this crosses the line and is pathetic. Someone sent this to me, and now we have to pay lawyers to deal with this dude, hashtag shady lawyers. And what he's showing and describing is an advertisement from Angel Reyes and Associates. And it is the title of the ad is Zell and Associates. And when you type in Zell and sorry, this is actually a different example, but so the reason this is material is this is a different example that I'm working with. So it happened to James Amaro, and I've also found it happening to Zell and Associates. So this is not a one-off oopsie. This is clearly systemic and deliberate. But the ad is, the query is for Zell and Associates. The ad is for, the title of the ad is Zell and Associates, but the click-through rate, the click-through URL is for Angel Reyes and Associates, and that is the issue under concern. Now, Gyi, we've talked a lot about brand and the conflation of brand with other keywords, etc. But one of the things that certainly is within Google's guidelines is you should not be able to bid on a competitor's name. And that should not be, you should not be able to pretend that you are a competitor. And the way they actually talk about doing that is including the name of the competitor in the title of the ad. So this is a violation of Google's policy about having a competitor's brand in your own ad. So for example, Coke cannot have Pepsi in the ad because that can be misleading. However, we're seeing this. How did this come about? How on earth could this come about?
Well, there's a couple different ways. One is that obviously you can bid on the competitor's name and use dynamic keyword insertion, which Google will replace text in your ad copy with the query that was used or the keyword that was triggered for the ad. And so, if I search for, in this case, James Amaro, and I'm Angel Reyes, and I'm bidding on James Amaro, and I'm using dynamic keyword insertion, my ad will say James Amaro for searchers that are searching for James Amaro. Now, as you mentioned, this is a violation of Google's trademark policies. We'll try to get a link to those as well. But two major trademark policies are one, you can't violate someone else's trademark, and two, you're not supposed to create confusion with your ads. And depending on how you're using dynamic keyword insertion, the second thing I think is up for debate, because use the Coke and Pepsi example. If Pepsi does an ad that's like way better than Coke, right? Choose Pepsi, it's way better than Coke.
Yep.
That to me doesn't violate the misleading thing you're saying. Very simply, you could be like, we're not Coke, right? We're not Morgan and Morgan. We're not James Amaro. Those are less misleading. Do they still violate the trademark issue? Anyway, Google has countermeasures to try to keep this from happening. And as we were talking about in the pre-show, one way that this could be happening, even without to circumvent the countermeasures, is this is very speculative, but I suggest that perhaps it was close variant. So in this case, if Angel Reyes bids on personal injury lawyer and Google matches that with James Amaro's name, it's possible, I think, I actually don't know, I'm second guessing myself, it's possible that dynamic keyword insertion could match to the close variant, maybe. I'm not 100% sure on that, but anyway, it seems like, based on the thread that you posted, it seems like this firm is all in on conquesting.
Well, so it's interesting. I'm going to read. There was a case on this. One of the responses, I'm going to read someone we do not know, Jared Dean Johnson. Google Ads is using dynamic keyword insertion, which you cited, Gyi, to adopt and replace any keyword they have in their keyword list. This is likely done on accident because your firm name is in the giant list of keywords they are bidding on. Yes, they're bidding on your name. No, they didn't intentionally insert your name into the ad. You can see the case Rocky McElhaney versus Hughes and Coleman for the legal version of this. However, as this went on and on, a lot of people have had this experience with Angel Reyes specifically. And I was looking at some of the examples here of people who chimed in on this. Someone wrote, he is very aware. I reached out about it last week. Here's what he said, quote, "Horses are now long out of the barn, and this will be part of the new competitive environment for attorney advertising in Texas." That came from Ryan Zell. So it looks to me like this is a bit of a middle finger, that this is how it's going to work. And I don't care that pisses you off. However, for me, the fact that this is happening with this specific firm repeatedly and the same tactic, it suggests what they have figured out how to do is to do this Conquest ad by using Google's own dynamic keyword insertion based on the branded keyword list in order to bid on other firms. So they're using Google's own automation to violate Google's own policy. And that's pretty fascinating, if I'm right about that.
My take on this stuff is, I always bring it back to the economics. I would love to see the economics on these Conquest type campaigns.
Okay.
Now, so the basic math is, are they actually converting clients profitably? Two, of course, is the part that you can't maybe measure so much, is what's this costing you from a reputation standpoint in your community? And obviously, Attorney Reyes does not care what other lawyers in his community think about him and his ad strategies.
Some people might say that we don't care what other agencies think about us and our strategies. Just saying. So that might not be true. Bad. Yeah.
That there's some truth to that. I tend to think that this falls into the, you're drafting off other people's brands. Is it all fair?
Okay, so given the lower cost per clicks, right? Mm-hmm. Given the lower cost per clicks for brands, right?
Mhm.
Is it inconceivable to you that this tactic doesn't pay off financially?
Not inconceivable. I would
Okay.
say in this case, looking at this specific example that was posted here.
Yeah.
This is the Ryan Zell example. So Zell and Associates is showing Reyes's URL, Reyes's ads, and the ad is literally just Zell and Associates. So in this case, this to me violates false and misleading rules of professional conduct. It violates the false and misleading ad rules. It violates Google's policies.
Okay.
So this one's pretty clearly not okay. Now, what if it was the same one, but it said, use Zell, try Reyes, something like that.
Zell is hell. Try Reyes.
There you go. There's some good advertising. That one I could see both economically, and I could see, you know what? Hey, this is not a trying to mislead the consumer. I'm trying to distinguish myself from the consumer. I think maybe I would love to see the economics of these campaigns, because again, it's now the other thing that you might pick up. This is another thing that lawyers will not like. You might pick up existing clients that are searching for the contact information that are unhappy with the firm, and they might make a switch after already hiring the firm, right? And so anyway, I would love to see robust economics on conquesting. I think if forgetting about my personal taste in all of this,
distaste,
assuming that you're doing this in a way that is economically viable, passes muster on the compliance side of the house, I think you're going to see it more. I don't think that when I think of the plaintiff's bar and really law practice in general, I've got a lot of great friends that are lawyers. I'm a lawyer. I love lawyers, but it is pretty cutthroat out there when it comes to advertising. And I don't think that traditional notions of this is just bad for your reputation, tasteless, tacky, drafting off competitors, sweat equity stuff. I don't think that's going to carry the day, especially as we get into ABS and PE money and all this stuff coming into legal too.
Tasteless and tacky works, man.
Right. Oh yeah. And again, that's tasteless and tacky is subjective.
Underhanded can work.
Yeah. My thing is, one, can it pass ethics muster? Can it pass Google policy muster? And then two, is it economically viable? And I would love to see data on that.
We do not recommend this.
We do not recommend this either.
I do know that we have clients for whom we do not run their pay-per-click for this very reason, for whom it works.
Now let me ask you a question. Don't you add local competitor names to the negative list for the very reason that they're triggering them creates waste in your ad campaigns?
So at the risk of you throwing me a softball over the plate to talk about how amazing our pay-per-click service is that what you were doing there? I appreciate it. After all of the heckling I took during the pre-show.
I'm using your amazing pay-per-click services as an example of, or at least maybe a data point on potentially why I'm skeptical that conquesting works. Because when you just match to competitor names, it doesn't convert very well.
So we go out of our way, and I'm going to get this data point wrong, but I think this is accurate. This is what I recollect. Really, really sophisticated negativing on brand, extremely sophisticated. And I believe when we set that up, we saw kind of an across the board decrease of 14% in your cost per. I don't want to say conversion. I do believe it was cost per lead, and maybe it was cost per conversion, but we really go out of our way to avoid this. I mean, we're at the extreme level of avoiding this because
why do you do that?
Because
why do you negative out so many competitor names?
Because ultimately we are trying to get around the way Google is deliberately monetizing brand to their benefit and nobody else's, which in general reduces the economics of how this plays. The other thing,
so that's a very hold on a second, because it sounds like you're dodging this question. Aren't you doing it because by bidding on competitor names, you're creating click waste in your campaigns? Yeah,
100%.
Okay, all right,
100%. But
that wasn't clear from what you were saying to me.
But so think about the difference here in this ad. When the ad actually looks like it's Sam Zell's business, your click-through rate is going to be pretty solid, right? The economics, right? When it is literally deceptive, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna, you're a great quality score, and it's literally deceptive. So the economics on this are going to be a lot better than a confusion ad, where I'm not. The ad really isn't about pretending that I am Amaro and Amaro Law. It is about something else. So I think you can make the argument that if you and we haven't done this, but if you deliberately go out of your way to set it up and have Google trick its own guidelines into serving up these Conquest ads, I think you could make the argument that the economics is pretty solid. And based on the middle finger that Reyes has sent people who have complained about it.
Money makes a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go